My name is Wendi Safstrom, and I'm the president of the SHRM Foundation. I also have the great pleasure to be a board member for GlobalMindED. And I am so delighted to be here with each of you today, the GlobalMindED leaders, sponsors, partners, collaborators, and certainly educational innovators who are going to make next June's event in Denver. I've been to 3 of them the last 3 years. Make sure you don't miss it. It's titled The Dimensions of Our Democracy, Architecting the Next 250 Years. It's going to be the best yet. And together, I know that we'll be able to set our collaborations and our country on the best trajectory for a future that works for us all. And what I'm most excited about as a GlobalMindED board member leader with each of you in the room today is the opportunity that we have to scale. We have the opportunity to scale the impact from getting to from thousands of students into promotional pathways and jobs to hundreds of thousands of students and eventually millions of students. And we can only do that with your commitment, with your guidance and your leadership to really determine the best strategic ways forward through technology, galvanizing key partners and insights of the young that we serve to tell us what they most need in order to be successful on their learning and career journeys. And we know, we've been talking about it this morning, we were talking about this last night at dinner, the need has never been greater. Emotionally, socially, practically, professionally, we've got to fortify our emerging leaders with the skills they most need to succeed and lead for the decades ahead. We have to add to human value above and beyond technology, and with your help, we can do that even faster. So, for now, it is my pleasure to introduce Carol Carter, and you all know, founder and CEO of GlobalMindED, and one of the most generous leaders in education and public life in our country, the Honorable former Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, for their Fireside chat. And that's entitled Peacebuilding for Leadership and Legacy, Safety, Opportunity, Social Justice, and New Models of Bold Collaborations. Carol and Arne.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and we're really thrilled to have Arne here, somebody who I have known for a long time, and just so delighted that the schedule worked out and he took a 6 a.m. flight from Chicago and he's going right back. So very much appreciate you making time for this with the leaders that are gathered here. So our theme today, Arne, is the world at your doorstep, local actions shaping global leaders. You are one of those global leaders making big impact, neighborhood by neighborhood in Chicago. And how can CRED, your vast contacts, your very resource network, and the highly influential leaders who you are at the table with work differently than the last few decades to be more effective in driving nonpartisan change and local actions that can prepare the emerging leaders in this room to lead in their neighborhood, in their cities, and around the world?
That's a tough first question. So a lot there. And first, it's just really, really honored to be here. I'm a huge fan of Carol's and lots of new friends, old friends I got a chance to say hello to today. And I think the need to come together to build community, to try and support each other, it's always been true. And I think it's absolutely more true now than any time in my lifetime. So I appreciate people trying to work together. So I'll just take quick minute. It's been a fun day. This is a sobering topic, but I've been laser focused on reducing gun violence in Chicago, my hometown, for the past 9 years, and just working in the streets, working hands-on directly with the guys most at risk of shooting and being shot. We started with 25 guys in one room. We're now serving over 1,000 men, women. We're down to 12-year-olds, unfortunately, because that's who's also being shooting and being shot at 9 sites across the city. And while we have a long way to go, we just had our safest summer in 60 years. We may have our safest year in 60 years. So we're not there yet, but the progress has been pretty remarkable. So, big picture, what did we try to do? Try to take a problem that was very, very personal for me. I lost too many friends growing up. When I was a teen, guys who protected me and gave me safe passage in and out of neighborhoods when I was playing basketball. Tried to take a problem that was impacting way too many of us, be very dissatisfied with a status quo that just sort of allowed this to happen. On a relative basis, Chicago historically was 6 times more violent than New York, here, 3 to 4 times more violent than LA. It didn't make any sense for us to be that bad. And I always said it's never the kids' fault. It's our fault as adults, as educators, as leaders. And so what we've tried to do is just be very, very close, on the blocks, in the neighborhoods, working with the guys. I always say those closest to the problem actually have the best ideas, the best solutions. So you can talk about a vast network or whatever, but any good ideas I've come up with over the past couple of years have come from guys caught in these cycles of violence. So stay very, very close. They know what they need. They know what's working. They know what's not working. Be very humble in this work, but work with a real sense of urgency and listen to those who are closest to the problem. So, and then the final thing I'll say, it's just such an interesting time. It's so much going on, in the country that for me personally is so incredibly disturbing that we have to play at a couple different levels. So we are absolutely playing block by block and hyper-local, and we're trying to think about how we save democracy in America. And they're both super important in trying to just all stretch ourselves, make tangible impact day to day wherever we live, and find ways to see if we can get to a better place. It is not an easy time, but I think that's what we're all sort of called to do right now, because this is a moment unlike any other moment in any of our lifetimes.
And it really reinforces what the first two panels talked about, working on the ground, community by community, and it is both and, because we have to keep a bigger lens while we're working community by community. As we approach the 250th anniversary of our democracy this summer, we face shifting sands of structures being dismantled and replaced, which according to one of the men who won the Nobel Prize in economics, is the path to could be the path to new economic prosperity. Disruption which replaces old structures with new and better structures. What new structures are needed to build a more effective outcome for, quote, soft power right now, both nationally and internationally? And how can states lead and drive this change? And how can organizations provide the structure through their ability to collaborate that can and will be stronger, we surely hope, than those that are being replaced right now? And then finally, what would the Founding Fathers prioritize in our current climate, and how would they work across differences to achieve their ambitious goals?
You and I are both a little biased, but we both come from the world of education. I don't know how you have a functioning democracy without a strong educational system. And so whether it's here in the United States, whether it's globally, I go to Haiti every year and do some work there, and that's a place that's obviously more than struggling to have a functioning government and try and get some semblance of a democracy back. But the division, we have so many divisions in our country right now: race, gender, ideology, geography. But for me, the divide that I'm maybe most worried about is the divide of the education haves and have-nots. Mm-hmm. And if you are locked out of educational opportunity, if you are locked out of an economy that more and more needs knowledge workers, you are absolutely marginalized, and you fear the future for good reason. That's not paranoia. That's real. And we're all very privileged to be in a room like this, but if all of us didn't have a chance to get a great education, we literally couldn't get to a room like this. We wouldn't be here. And so whatever we can do, locally, nationally, internationally, to create education opportunity for the have-nots, those on the other side of the railroad tracks or whatever it might be, other side of the city, that's the only way we can have healthy, vibrant, thriving democracies with upward social mobility. Yeah. And so easier said than done. With the collapse of our former Department of Education, the dismantling there, it's a disaster. I have nothing good to say about it. It's extraordinarily concerning, disheartening. But having said that, we have a decentralized system of education in America that has some challenges to that. But you have a chance for 50 states to step up and lead now. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to ask for permission from Washington. You can just go do it. And so having states come together, and I always say, education should be the ultimate nonpartisan or bipartisan issue. There's nothing left or right about more kids having access to pre-K and more kids reading at grade level in 3rd and 4th grade and raising graduation rates and having more college graduates. Those are nation-building goals. Those aren't Republican goals or Democratic goals or whatever. So I've really been trying to challenge state leaders now in the absence of any national leadership. Can states come together and do some things? And I always say that you need a couple building blocks in this space. You need goals. Right now, if I asked any of you, what's our education goals for our country? Nobody here could give me an answer. We don't have a goal, which is heartbreaking. You need some goals, a couple goals. You need a couple strategies to try and achieve them. You need some metrics to measure them. And then you need some public transparency and accountability. But all those things, states, left, right, red, blue, whatever, can come together and work on together. And internationally, in places particularly that don't have quality education systems, where often too often girls are marginalized, don't have the opportunity, where we can create education opportunity. That's for me the best soft power, whatever the right word is. Soft power is almost too soft. It's stronger than that, because these change the trajectories not just of individuals, but of their communities, of their families, and ultimately of the country.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Arne. So the next question is around funding, and there's no question that the dollars have to flow differently if we are to create a strong economic future. If you could sit down with Warren Buffett and all of the people who signed the CEO Action Pledge, what would you encourage them to do with their money to make the biggest impact possible during these times of so much change where so much is at stake?
These are all really interesting questions. I'll just say, philanthropy and foundations have an extraordinarily important role to play always, and now more than ever. But I'm going to be really, really clear. Philanthropy cannot replace public sector investment.
Right.
So if 4 million people lose health care, philanthropy can't fix that.
Right.
If we stop taking care of kids who have special needs in school, philanthropy can't fix that. When we are arresting and ICE is snatching people and kidnapping them and removing children from families, philanthropy can't fix that. And so it's incumbent upon us to vote, to elect folks that believe that kids should have access to a high quality education, who believe people should have access to health care, who care about sort of basic human rights, and that's not where we are right now, which is, again, is just extraordinarily challenging. We're in unprecedented times. So I don't ever want anyone to think philanthropy can backfill what is not happening at the federal and the state and the local level. And we have to push hard on that. Having said that, for philanthropic dollars, support from corporations, supporting organizations like this, there's a desperate need now to double down and to do more, because the need is not less, it's greater now. And I understand it's a scary time, and I always hear about people being fearful, and I understand that in the work I do every day. Honestly, I'm scared every single day. I worry about, am I going to come home at night most days? So I'm not one of those guys, don't be scared. I'm scared every day, very honest. But the question is, do we let fear paralyze us and stop us from moving, or do we use fear to motivate us to work harder and go further? And I think that's what we have to push through, that fear, and find ways to support each other. And so whether it's Warren Buffett or others, being laser focused on helping the most marginalized, helping the most disenfranchised, not running away from those challenges, not thinking that somehow those issues have gone away. We have to be in the game, and we have to try and give kids a chance to be successful. So I'll always come back to education. So a huge role to play there. The final thing I'll say is that those large donors have a lot of resources, but if they have more to give, which they do, now is the time. So for me, it's not a time for like a 20-year strategic plan.
Right.
It's like, how do we bridge from here for the next
away.
2 or 3 years? And if we have to spend down our endowments, if we have to spend down our whatever it is, if we don't do that, I'm not sure what our country looks like 3, 4, 5 years from now. So as generous and thoughtful and supportive as folks have been, this is a time to go even harder, to the point where the giving is painful. and see if we can end up in a better place a couple years from now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I also think there are a lot of people who are major donors and are realizing the last few decades they could have been more involved in organizations like GlobalMindED, and this will allow them to not only help financially, but also in terms of their time and their networks to have more impact during these really critical times. So thanks for that.
Just one more
Yeah.
thing for the corporate partners. So it's, for me, it's like obviously great if you want to help scholarship kids or provide tutoring or provide college scholarships or whatever. That's clearly fantastic. But if you aren't willing to hire them at the back end of their education journey, then we're really not solving the problem. And if you look at any corporation, any place anywhere in America, the lack of representation of folks of color, of women, on management teams, in boardrooms, we're not there yet. And so the philanthropy is a great starting point. The support is a great starting point. But if you don't actually believe that there's a talent pool there that you can benefit from, and if you're not bringing them in to make your teams better, then we're still perpetuating these cycles. Yeah. And so for me, it's always, you want the altruism, but I really want self-interest as well. I want folks, I need that talent. I have to develop that talent because it's going to make me better. So philanthropy is cool, but I would say it's insufficient. I want some self-interest in trying to diversify teams and bring in the kind of talent that then creates the pipelines of families helping their children and breaking these cycles.
And that's such a great point, because also I had a chance to hear a session with Michelle during UNGA and the CEO of her Aries Corporation, and what a great role model of what CEOs of these corporations can also be doing right now. So I feel like there's a lot of different ways that people can be recasting how they're able to contribute kind of 10x during these times. So Arne, for the emerging leaders in this room, and for those who teach them, and those who will be hiring them or invest in them as entrepreneurs, how can peace be built locally to leave a leadership legacy that ripples throughout our towns, our cities, the nation, and the world? And how can all of our students become a leader someday as impactful and as generous as you are?
I'm far from where I want to be, so I'm making a lot of mistakes every day and trying to get better. So this is always about a journey. It's not about a destination. And we do all these things very, very imperfectly, but that's literally what we're trying to do every day, is build peace in Chicago and put in place non-aggression agreements and peace treaties between groups that have sometimes been warring for decades. And so that's literally the heart of what we try and do. So I'll just try and walk through how we think about it on a daily basis, and again, do this very, very imperfectly. And sometimes you have some great successes, then things blow up and you have to, breaks your heart and you have to start back over. Helping young people try and understand something bigger than what they're seeing every day is super important. If they don't have any vision of a possible future for them, of their families, of their community, it's hard to get them past the instantaneous reactions that lead to death in our city. So helping them come up for air, see something bigger, putting in place some incentives. We incentivize peace. We incentivize not shootings. We do some things that are very controversial, but being very clear about that. Helping people heal from trauma is at the heart of what we do. We always say that hurt people, but people who can heal and can help to heal themselves and their community. And when everything in the street teaches you to retaliate for what has happened to you or to your tribe, having folks learn to forgive is extraordinarily difficult, but that's at the heart of what we do. That if you retaliate and you take another life, it never brings back your brother. It's just another mother, another child crying. And that's a journey to get to that point. But we literally have people on our team who not just shot at each other, but shot each other, who have come together to work, and that leading by example is hugely important. For us, thinking really about non-traditional leaders, so most of my team are guys that, were street involved for a long time. Many served a long time in prison. One of my best site managers killed a friend of mine when I was in college, and I didn't know him, hated him all my life, and we've had our own healing journey. He's one of our our best teammates now. And then the final thing is just sort of recognizing the capacity for change. That transformation is not overnight, it's not linear. We have good days, we have horrible days, but really understanding that with time, folks that may have been leading their community in a very destructive way, folks that may have been part of the cycles of violence, they're still leaders. You just got to give them an opportunity and the supports and the guidance to lead in a very different way. And they are going to lead us to a much better place. So those are the themes that we've tried to try and learn every single day. And the final thing I'll say is that for me, this is the grayest world I've ever been a part of. There's no black, it's all gray. Who's a hero, who's a villain? There are amazing police officers who risk their life to keep us safer, and there are also police officers who perpetuate violence in our community. There are guys on the street that have taken lives, and those same guys are now saving lives every single day. So learning really not to judge and just take people for who they are today, not what they did yesterday or the day before or 5 years ago. Suspending judgment and just trying to take people where they are and go to the next level. Those are the type of themes that we're thinking about, and again, very imperfectly, trying to do every day. But that's why we're getting safer, because folks that are part of the violence are now part of the solution. That's what's changing in Chicago.
Well, and I love that, Arne, and a big piece of that, too, is the idea of role models like you and the team you've assembled. And also share, for those of you who don't get our newsletter, we have almost every day examples of people who have overcome 2 or 3 different odds. And next month, we'll be recognizing our veterans and our Native American leaders. But those are, these are all things that can help people shift and have a lens that's different than what they may have been exposed to, which have caused some of those issues. We have time for a couple of questions. So we would love to hear from some of the students if you're thinking about some things or have some questions, or if you're not a student and you've got a question for Arne. Just raise your hand, and anybody. Don't be intimidated, because this is a really nice guy. Oh, we have one. Oh, this is our wonderful Dean of Social Work, and also she's also taken on Dean of Education. 2 things right now. Enrique.
Hi, I don't know if everyone can hear me. I'm Enrique McCoy, and I'm the Dean of the Graduate School of Social Work and Acting Dean for Mortgage College of Education at the University of Denver. And I'm a Chicagoan. Through and through, I've only been in Denver a few times. So everything you talk about resonates with me. I spent most of my life in Chicago. But from my work perspective, I really want to ask, you talk about the Department of Education. And of course, higher education is being impacted extraordinarily in many ways. And we're being impacted not only by funding, but of course with many of the mandates, with our Dear Colleague letter, et cetera. So I guess I'd ask what your thoughts are about how we in higher education should respond. I'm coming from a social work and education perspective where, students won't have access that they've traditionally had to be able to do the work that we need to actually impact our communities in the way that's possible. And that's much needed. So what your thoughts or advice would be about those of us leading those schools where people are actually out there doing the work in the communities that is not valued from kind of a federal perspective, but of course we know is valued from people who live in communities.
Yeah, it's a great question. You may never invite me back. I'm always too honest, so I'll just give you my take, and happy to have pushback or throw tomatoes. But the assault on higher education is very intentional. It's very strategic, and I believe it's part of a larger attack on our democracy. When you have institutions of higher education where people can think critically, when they're taught to discern information from misinformation, that's a threat to authoritarian leadership. If you look at the playbook in other countries, this is exactly when authoritarian leaders took over. They go right after higher education. I've heard that the Trump administration has a goal of reducing enrollment in higher education by 50%. They want to cut in half the number of folks going to college. And we're always trying to spend our whole life trying to get more people to go to college. So this is a very, very intentional strategy that's part of a much larger assault on democracy. What's been deeply troubling to me in higher education is that institutions have somehow fought this battle alone, or tried to. So when UVA is attacked, they're by themselves. When Harvard is attacked, they're by themselves. And I truly don't understand that. This battle is tougher, and the opponent is more vicious and has more resources than any one entity. But when the first university, Columbia or whatever, whatever N was, go back to, Harvard, a couple years ago, there should be 500 university presidents standing with them and 500 heads of the board of trustees standing together. And that would send a message that just hasn't happened. If you look at the philanthropic sector, it's been interesting. Major foundations across the country have signed a sort of a compact to unite together and push back. We saw law firms sort of get picked off one by one. And I get it, and these are broad stereotypes, it's not fair, but most university presidents are academics. They're used to being revered and respected. And this is a street fight. This is something they have nothing in their life or their career trajectory has prepared them for. And if a bully takes your lunch money one day, he doesn't not take it the next day. He just likes the cruelty of it. He'll take your money every day. So if you capitulate, they'll take it, and then they'll take again and take again. And so right now you are finally starting to see a little bit of a kernel of universities coming together, and you're seeing folks rejecting the compact he put out and standing together. But I just think this is not a solo, this is not an individual sport. This is a team sport. And people who, I get the fear. I'm talking to folks all the time, but if you think you can hide under a rock and he's going to miss you, that ain't going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And they tried this early at Columbia and other places. They're like, oh shit, this works. Like, these guys just roll over. Let's just keep going. And so from the start, had there been a very different united front, we wouldn't be in such a dark place right now. It's not too late. It's very late. Long answer. Universities have to come together. They have to support each other. They have to stand together. They have to stand. This is not some academic exercise. This is a brawl for survival, not just for their institutions, but for our democracy. And if higher ed topples, our democracy is not too far behind that. So the stakes could not be higher, and I'm trying to do whatever I can to rally folks to stand together. There's some, President Princeton's been amazing. President Westling's been amazing. Again, good to see folks in the compact challenge it, who sent the compact. The president of MIT has been extraordinary in helping to lead that charge. But this is not practice. This is not a drill. This is real, and people need to understand what they have to do together right now.
Yeah, and we will say that yes, well said. And we also have some colleagues who weren't able to be here today, like Chuck from ASCU and Lynn Pasquarella from AAC&U, and they're also leading these giant groups of all these presidents on these issues too. So I think it's a point really well taken. Well, let's give Arne a big round of applause for making a priority today to be here. Thank you, Arne.